This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. A few weeks ago, myself, Pirate Queen Pickle and Elston from Elston Nation went to the UK Games Expo in Birmingham. While we were there, we saw a whole host of different things from board games to 3D printed miniatures to paint ranges and other little companies, and wanted to showcase one of those smaller companies in today's video by painting up one of the models that I bought at the event. The model that I'm going to be painting in today's video is this mountain troll from Atlantis Miniatures. I absolutely love Atlantis Miniatures, and as soon as I saw the stall and saw this model built up on display, I knew that I had to get one for myself and paint it up. I had so many ideas buzzing around my head, and I really wanted to get started on this, and I did as soon as I got back. Now, one of the things that I see get mentioned a lot online is how people are intimidated by painting larger miniatures, whether it's the amount of detail or whether it's just the size, and they're not sure how to approach it. So I thought that that's what we'd explore in today's video, and I'd show you how I go about painting larger miniatures and see if it helps at all. So once I'd got the mold lines cleaned up and got the model assembled using super glue and activated to make the process go really smoothly, I started getting to work on filling some of the gaps. Now sometimes when you have bigger models, especially with resin, you get little gaps in between the pieces where they don't quite fit as flush as possible. Luckily on this it wasn't too bad. I used liquid green stuff for the first time ever. It went alright, I think. I do prefer normal green stuff because it's a bit easier to work with. And once that was on, I got to work making the base look a little bit more interesting. Now, I've been fairly lazy with my basing recently, opting to just dip it in base ready, maybe add a tuft and call it done. With this model, because it's on a larger base, you can't really get away with that as much. You do need to put a bit more detail in and a bit more effort in, and I thought this was a fantastic chance to sort of test out my terrain skills that I'm building on and help to tie the miniature into the environment. Because he's got all the crystals on his back, I added some crystals to the base as well. I added these ones from Geek Gaming Scenics, and I also added some more regular cut shaped ones from Spellcrow as well. So there's a nice variety on there, and what we'll do is later on when we paint everything up, I will tie these in to the crystals on the model. I did try using some crackle paste as well, but I didn't prime the base before I put this on, so it just flaked straight off. Once that happened, I gave up, I added some glue and some base ready, and then I'm going to paint all this up later on, and we'll add some more bits and pieces to the base later as well to really bring it to life. Once all the base ready was on, as always, I gave it a nice spray over the entire thing with Matte Scenic Sealant. While waiting for all that to dry, let me tell you about this week's sponsor, which is BetterHelp. Now, over the last couple of years, I'm sure that we have all had to deal with feelings of depression and anxiety and just general stress having lived through the coronavirus pandemic. Now, over on the Discord server, we do have a health and wellbeing channel where we openly talk about mental health and how okay we are at various points, but sometimes that's just not enough, and that's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to help and listen to you. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network that gives you access to therapy that may not be available in your local area. Signing up is easy. You just fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. You then schedule video and phone sessions, plus you can exchange unlimited messages and everything you share is completely confidential. If at any point you want to request a new therapist, you can do so for free at any time. If you're interested in signing up and trying this out for yourself, you can get 10% off your first month by using the link down below in the description, betterhelp.com/picklejar. That's betterhelp.com/picklejar. Use the link down below in the description and in the pinned comments and take charge of your own mental health. Thank you BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the painting. Now now that the model is all built and all the gaps are filled, the base is all done and set, it's time to start painting the model, and this is where I was really excited to get started. I primed it with a black, as I do with all my miniatures, and then gave it a quick zenithal just to help the details pop out a little bit so I could see where I wanted to do different things. And then I started experimenting. Now, bigger models can be intimidating to paint because they are a bigger model. Often that means they're more expensive, which means that it's more money sort of wasted, in quotation marks, if you do something wrong. The problem with that thinking is that you can't really do anything wrong. And if you do like mess up the paint job that you're not happy with, just strip the model and start again. Like, it is a really easy thing to do. With this model, I experimented with a few different things. I tried adding a dark green undershade to his underarms and like the legs, anywhere that was in shadow, because it would contrast nicely with the blue. I ended up scrapping that anyway because I went over it with a Caucasian skin colour on his chest and stomach and underarms, because this is closer to a sort of orangey colour, and orange and blue are complementary colours, they work really well together, and this added more visual interest so that the entire model wasn't just blue. Now, one of the other things that I know that people get worried about whilst painting bigger models is because they're a bigger model, they've got more detail, and people think that they need to pick out every single detail and highlight everything to perfection. No, don't bother. This model is airbrushed for a couple of nice base blends and then dry brushed for the majority of the detail. A nice light dry brush over something like this that's got a load of texture on it, it looks fine. I think the important thing to remember is that when you're picking your paint job and when you're picking what you want to do with a model, pick out a couple of details that you want to focus on, and then everything else just sort of blends into the background. For this, I knew that the focal point was going to be the crystals on the model and on the base. They were going to be the nice, bright OSL type things, and that everything else would then just fit in around it. Again, I tried something that I don't do a lot here. I tried thinning down a purple wash and adding that over some of the skin on the knuckles and the knees and into the recesses on the stomach. And that added some nice sort of blemishes, which is something that I don't do very often and I've been trying to experiment more with. A couple of highlights on the chest just to help exaggerate the details a little bit more and get rid of some of that sort of sloppiness from the airbrush work. By this point, all of the colours were down, the base coats were all down, all the highlighting was done either via the dry brush or via a few scratchy highlights here and there, especially on the skin colour on the stomach. The base colours on the base itself were down, which I was going to add base readies and other bits and pieces to later on, and it was time to start thinking about the OSL. Doing something like OSL, which is object source lighting, can be scary, especially on a big model like this that, like I said, maybe costs a little bit more, or that you're happy with the paint job up to this point. Adding something like this, it can be scary because it can potentially spoil the work that you've done so far. You need to sort of fight through that feeling and just go for it. Now, I'm using a very sort of cheating way of doing OSL, depending on who you ask. All I'm doing is spraying a white through the airbrush onto all the crystals to give them a nice bright base coat for the pink to go on top of after that, and then spraying the pink over the top, letting it sort of go over the crystals and around the edges so that it gives that glow effect rather than just pink crystals. To add a bit more definition and depth to this colour, I'm mixing up a magenta oil paint. This is the magenta from Winsor & Newton. It's absolutely gorgeous. First tried this in a video that I did with Luke and I fell in love, and it's one of my favourite oil paints now. All I'm doing is just chucking this on, adding it onto all the crystals, and then we're going to wipe that off with a cotton bud with a little bit of white spirits, mixing medium on it, just to take it off of the top edges so that it's not the same colour all the way across. And what this does, it gives us a nice blend between the sort of darker magenta in the recesses and the brighter pink on top. Once that's all on and you're happy with how it looks, give it a quick blast with a hairdryer to make sure it's all dry. Give it a blast with a varnish. I'm using the matte varnish from Colourforge just to set it all. And then it's time to give it another dry brush just to pick out those details, the sharp edges, the tops of the crystals, and that really adds to the glowing effect. You've got the bright white going all the way down into the sort of magenta and pinks, and it looks absolutely fantastic once it's done. And again, it's a nice, easy way of doing things. After the OSL and the crystals, I knew that the base was the next big focal point for this model, and I wanted to draw a lot of attention to it. To do this, I added a whole host of different basing materials from Geek Gaming Scenics, from Spellcrow, from Gamergrass, to add some much needed variety and just some visual interest to the base. I'll put a link to everything that I've used down below in the description, and there will be affiliate links if you do want to help support the channel. Large models can be intimidating because of the size of them, because of the price of them, and because of the time that you're expected to put in. I spent about 5 or 6 hours painting this model, and I hope that that goes to show what you can achieve with using really simple techniques and not a lot of time at all. And I hope that it inspires you guys to paint up your next big model project. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave us a like down below, and if you're brand new and feel like subscribing, then hit that button as well. If you want to help support the channel, there's a number of different ways you can do so. We've got all our affiliate links down below in the description, which gives us a bit of a kickback every time you use them. As well as this, we have our brand new Patreon account that we've just set up. Massive thank you to all the people that are currently members on our YouTube channel memberships, and a big thank you to everyone that's moved over to Patreon. We're trying something different with this, and if you want to help support us in that way, it is always massively appreciated. That's going to do it from me. I'll catch you in the next one, and until then, enjoy your hobby.